Page 51, there are several important items, actually 4 items I would like to share with you before we go to the daf. What is this daf is all about? It's one of those dapim, one of those sugiyot that has a lot of practical halachot and a lot of applications. So let's go over them. First discussion is going to have about using either pat or regel, which means for the purpose of eruv, do we use a food involved with bread, like mazon shtei suudot, or we just require the person, regardless to his circumstance, such as poor or rich, to use their physical moving regel, meaning to go there and to be there in the place that they designate as a place for eruv. The second part, which is absolutely crucial for all of our discussion for a long time, which is where do we have the real source of alpay mama? If you remember, when we established the first phase of our Eruv in our city, one of the questions from people who are not familiar with halacha was where it's written in the Torah. How do you know that we need to have such a Eruv in a measurement of 2,000 cubit? The source of that discussion come from our sugya on this daf today, page 51. Number 3 in our discussion is the idea of measurement of 2,000 amma. Do we go by circle, which means people like David, a mathematician, do we go in a radius, which means from the point of the eruv, when we take a circle,
from the center of the circle out
center of the circle, we go the radius, whatever it is, or you go by square. The difference is that you have those corners
which are further than 2,000.
Further than 2,000. Okay. And number 4 is the expression in our mouth. In Judaism, following the Torah, it's crucial to hear clearly what exactly the person who make the eruv designate to do. And part of that is the idea that if it's ambiguous, we have a lot of issues of how to handle that. So we're going to discuss also that phase in eruv, what happened if someone said something that it's not fully clear. So again, we are on page 51 on the top of the page. 51 on the top of the page. The Tur tells us, as well as Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim Taftet, he said that if a person planning to be in a certain location, but he's physically not there, we have some issues. In other words, before the nightfall, if he have in his mind to go there, to be there, it's good. But we require him to do what? To not only express it in his mouth, but if he can run there quickly and he get there before the nightfall, before the Shabbat begins, that's fine. But if he says, I am planning to be over there, and at the time in between his expression until he gets there, it's already Shabbat, then we have a problem. We said he's not acquire Shvita, meaning Shabbat, meaning entity is there, because between the time that he express himself until the time he arrive, it's already Shabbat in between. So even though in his mind he planning to be there, we said here that he cannot move out of 4 amot at this point. So now we juxtapose that statement to the Mishnah. Amar le Abaye v'hachashcha lo ktane. In the Mishnah we said clearly that the time of the nightfall is so close that even if you run there, it will not be in time to do it. So it's not there. So he said, "Chashcha leveito, aval ikro shi'aron matzeh azil." So he said, you know what it means? It means if he needs to run from that place to his house before the sun set, that's where we have an issue. It's not sufficient time. But if he needs to run just between the place to the closest tree, that's fine. That's what the Mishnah meant. So he said another phase, another answer. Ikade amra marava chashcha lo ki mazge kale kale aval rahit mate. Which means if he goes slowly, like Shabbat afternoon, right? So then he will not be able to reach there. But if he rush fast, that's fine. which means Abaye is right by saying that if he doesn't have enough time to rush to his house without making the Eruv, but here we are speaking about a young person that have the ability to run fast and reach the place that he wants to be quickly on time before the Shabbat. And here is a story. Rabba ורב יוסף אבו קרז לבאורחה אמר לרבא לרב יוסף תשב תדיק לדסבי לחua. So they walk right before Shabbat and they saw a palm tree, and they saw one palm tree depend on the others, rely on others. So he said, I'm going to be there to rest to Shabbat over there. ואמרה לי, tu תדיק לדפריק מרי make karga. So they know a person that he used to sell his produce, this date that come out of that tree. They said, we're going to be in that specific. Now you see the specification. They talk about the guy that owned that place, that used that money to pay his taxes. So don't you know that palm tree that belonged to so-and-so? Amar le, Rav Yosef said to Rabbah, lo yadanu le. I don't know him, so how I'll be able to make it? You remember we said it need to be specific. And I don't know, most probably there are many. Amar le, or most probably there is a individual that he didn't recognize. Amar le, Rabbah said, Rav said, you know what? Smoch alai. Count on me. דתניא, רבי יוסי אומר, אם היו שניים, אחד מכיר ואחד שלא מכיר, זה שלא מכיר מוסר שביתו למכיר. וזה שמכיר אומר שביתנו במקום פלוני. So it means there are two guys. So one said to the other, guess what? You don't know? Count on me. I'll do it for both of us. And therefore he said it in such a language in Ivrit that he used the expression shvitatenu, that we both going to rest in that specific place. Yeah. So the Gemara commented and it said veloi. So this brother didn't say the name of Rabbi Yossi, and it's just a general baita. ולא תאמר רבי יוסי כי איכה דלקבלי מיני משום דרבי יוסי נימוקו עמו. So that's very important to know that the Gemara said in Gittin that every time Rabbi Yossi was one of the giant rabbis. So every time he brought something, he have a clear explanation what's involved. And it's not just explanation, he went to details and he was very erudite. So nimuko, Rashi explained, is like two words. If you read in the Rashi, it says טעמו במסכת גיטין, it's come from the tractate גיטין, page 67. מונה שבחם של חכמים, they express the greatness of the rabbis. One of them is Rabbi Yossi. נימוקו עמו נים וקו דבר יישר כוחו כקו המשקולת. נים is like small tiny hoot, small tiny a string, tiny one. And kav is something straight, like the measurement. So it means to say that Rabbi Yossi is always unequivalent, very lucid, and very erudite. So therefore, if you bring something, you have all the resources, and therefore we can count on him. Then the Mishnah said, so therefore, if he's not sure, so we go to 2,000 cubit, whatever it is, in any place. So now, remember, part of our discussion is the whole idea of Eruv, Tchumim and Shabbat, is if it's a Torah or it's rabbinic. So most of the rabbis, you remember in page 35, we said that most of the rabbis hold that it's rabbinic. And the Ritva said and others, the sources were, here we see it. How do you know that it's 2,000 cubits? You remember when David Cohen asked me? Source? The Tanya. We said in Shmot, right after the story of the Shirat Hayam. So in the book of Exodus said in chapter 16, Shvu ish tachtav. Moshe Rabbeinu said to the people, when it's come to collecting manna before Shabbat, each person will get his own, and on Friday you have double portion. But you warn them, when you are in the wilderness, each person stay in on location, Elu arba amot. That's the measurement of public domain, the moving in public domain, that should be in the measurement of 4 cubits. So tachtav, meaning in that location, it's how far can person go. And again, it was in that time, according to the two, applied to the manna. Next, al yetze ish mimkomo elu apayim amas. So they say 2 phrases in that line. One, shvu ich tachtav, which is the arba amot, and the other one, al yetze ish mimkomo. A person should not move from his location. So that's applied to 2,000 cubit. And that's the Tchum Shabbat. So, and that's basically Shara Tziyun in Shin Tzadik Vav.
So because they mentioned both of them within the same, because they were juxtaposed together, so they must have had different meanings, and one was...
Yeah, but one applied to 4 cubits.
Right, but I'm saying that's how they understood it, that one applies to 4, the other to 2,000.
Yeah, and it's all connected to Moshe Rabbeinu's statement to people, what is the Tchum Shabbat, what is the measurement of Shabbat. So, now we elaborate.
But the actual numbers, they come, is that oral from...
here we hold that it's rabbinic.
Okay,
the
so
rabbis instituted it.
The numbers of 4 are more than 2,000.
Those who said it's biblical, they said that it was like a tradition that passed down.
So it was
interpretation of that tradition. Menalan. How do you know it? אמר רב חיסדא למדנו מקום ממקום, מקום מניסה, ניסה מניסה, ניסה מגבול וגבול מגבול וגבול מחוץ וחוץ מחוץ. Beautiful. One of the principles of Rabbi Ishmael is גזירה שווה. What is גזירה שווה? When you have 2 lines or 2 words and we juxtapose one to another and we learn the concept from one place to another, apply to the same idea, the same notion in both places. So since it's written in the book of Numbers, chapter 35, they said, "Umadotem mechutz la'ir et pat kedma alpayim ba'ama." So because they said there in 4 stages, which is 1 stage, they use in the book of Shemot, they said, "V'samti lecha makom asher anus shama," I placed for the arei miklat, for the place for rescue, a specific place. And then they said, "V'yimatzor yotzei harotzeach el gvul yigmalato asher anus shama," which means, as again, the repetition of the idea of running out the murderer to a certain rescue city. So they use the same word, asher yanus. And then umatza oto goel adam mechutz ligvul ir miglato. So again, using the word here, chutz. Umadoten michutz la'ir et pat kedma alpayim ba'ama. Again, using the chutz. So because they use the same terminologies, the same, in our language, philological term of words, then we juxtapose the two, the same meaning. So usually we derive gzera shava only, something that is halacha leMoshe Sinai, but sometimes we derive it not directly from the sentence but from the concept. Now Rashi here elaborates on that a lot. It's a long Rashi, for sure is above the scope of our discussion, but since Rashi used the word here klomar, in my book Biura Klomar Berashi al Hashas, I explained this Rashi, and it was based on the Rashash and the Ritva and others. Basically, I explained what the Rashi meant, which is how they process all idea of Alpay Mama in the gradation, the level of gradation. First is Makom, Nisa. So all this process of juxtaposition, that was the meaning, but again I urge you to see it directly in my book if you have the time. V'neilaf mikir ha'ir v'chutz ha'elef ama. We can derive from this gzera shava from other location, which is mikur ha'ir v'chutz ha'elef ama, which is another line over there in Bamidbar. So the Gemara said dalin chutz michutz v'nim chutz michutza. Remember, when you juxtapose, you have to use the same letters. Chutz, chetz, vayif, tzadik, sofit, etc. And chutza, you have additional hey. So they say, what's the difference? Hatana de Rabbi Ishmael, what's the difference? Why you don't compare the concept instead of comparing words? So he said, Veshav HaKohen, Uva HaKohen, Zoi Shiva, Zoi Bia. When we speak about the Kohen, when the Kohen needs to do, he needs to recognize leprosy in the house, so he needs to go there, he needs to check that everything okay. Sometimes he comes, it's not okay, he needs to come back and check it again, etc. So each time they use the same term, even use different word, but Veshav HaKohen, Uva HaKohen. So he said the same thing is Zoi Shiva, Zoi Bia. So again, in my book, Biura Klomar, I elaborate on that Rashi a lot because it's a beautiful Rashi here, but we don't have the time, so if you want, you can read it in my book. So they said here, so again, we ask a question, how come you have lachutz and lachutza? So the Gemara responds and it said, you can derive this juxtaposition shava when you don't have the same words that is compared to the others clearly. But when you have something that is very similar, so therefore, if you use the word michutz ligvul miklato, and you use the others, so it's fine, but you cannot use from Mikir Ha'ir v'chutz ha'elef amah, only chutz, michutz la'ir 2,000 amah, which means the concept is equal, that the Kohen in the Shava Kohen and Baal Kohen does the same thing. 2,000 amah gulot. So now another discussion that we have in the Mishnah, the idea that Rabbi Chanina ben Antigno said that it has to be a goal, around. And the sages said, merubaot, they have to be square. So Rabbi Chanina ben Antignos manaf shachid, לגזירה שווה פאות כתיבן, והלל לגזירה שווה 2,000 אמא מנהלי. How we get the point that it has to be circle, if he goes by this quotation we just mentioned in Bamidbar, so it have to be in square way. So if we say that it doesn't go by that gzira shava, so how we know that these 2,000 amah for the Shabbat limits? So they said olam itle gzira shava. Rabbi Chanina ben Antignos agree that we go by that comparison between the two items. The Shaneacha, in regards to make it the square, the Amar Kra, that this sentence said clearly, Zei yelaim migrashei harim, that we talk about the property in those cities, and they said clearly that's the way it should be. Lazeh ata noten peot ve'ata noten peot l'shovtei Shabbat. So specifically in those locations of the Leviim, you make it in a square way. But the measurement of limited measurement of people who dwell on Shabbat that you learn by juxtaposition, you cannot learn by doing it as a square. So remember, we explained many times that square is an addition for the distance, the Shabbat limits you can go. So the Gemara asks Rabbanan, the sages that disagree and hold that you have to go by square measurement, how you do it. So Tana Rav Chanina Omer Kazeh Yehu Kol Shabtei Shabbat. Those of you who go to the study of math, I hope you remember that it was Euclides that he teach the Theorema. If you remember in the Theorema, it's in the Old Greek. I translate from Hebrew. In the Old Greek, that he used to use to have this measurement of a square. Anybody remember that idea? Maybe you remember.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us?
Yes. The squares of every right angle in the triangle will equal the hypotenuse.
Correct. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that's what Rav Chanina said, say, כזה יהיו כל שבתי שבת. Thank you. So אמר רב אחא בר יעקב מעביר 400 ברשות הרבים, אינו חייב עד שמעביר הן ואלכסונן. So it means even more than 4 cubits. So you go, if you make this square, you make this alachson, the ones, and that's the arrow.
Diagonal.
The diagonal. You go that way. So until you reach 5.6 amot. Amar Rav Papa badik le Rava. Rava check this number. You see how shrewd our ancient sages. Amud ברשות הרבים גבוה 10 ברוחב 4. If you have a pole in a public domain that they have the heights of 10 handbreadths and the width of 4, so we basically hold it as a private domain in regards to carry from one domain to another. צריך הן ולחסון או לא. They needed that it's considered as a private domain, or you need to have the other extension of 4x4. ואמרים לו לב היינו כדרב חנן, לתנא רב חנן אומר כזה יהיו כל שבתי שבת. That's exactly what we learned early, that has to be the same way as we learn about the property of the Levite, that you go by squares, so everything else has to be by the square way. וזהו שאמרו העני מערב ברגליו. So the sages said that the indigent person needs to use his feet to make the eruv. אמר רבי מאיר, אנו אין לנו אלא עני. So according to Meir, we go only specific bani. So which means that one is in regard to a person who said that I'm going to dwell in a specific location, and the second one is that someone who said I'm going to dwell specifically the place that I'm standing right now. So Rav Nachman machloket bimkomi. The disputation between Rav Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, it's specifically if a person said the place I'm standing right now, I'm going to dwell on Shabbat. The Rabbi Meir savar ikar eruv bepat. So here's the difference. One said that by the expression he made it happen, by the physical idea of being there. And according to the other, he says that that's the way Rabbeinu Yonatan Ritva explains that if he wants to do it, he use the food, the pat, which means that he in reality he's going to use a certain manner of eating to express the idea of that's the place I'm going to dwell permanently. Let's turn to page 51b. אני יודע כאילו רבנן לווה, אבל ישיר לו. So the rabbis are more lenient in regard to indigent, so they allow him that if he doesn't have a bread to use just his expression, I'm going to dwell in that location. But a rich person, that's different. So Rashi said, "Kigon yoshev beito, lo zo velo zu." A guy who's rich said to other people, you know, guess what? You're going to do it for me. I'm you know, too busy, or I'm in my house. I'm not bothering with that. So that's different. So they did not allow him to make the eruv without he have physical bread, the food. Rabbi Yehuda savar ikar eruv beregel. Echad ani v'echad ashir. Rabbi Yehuda said no. Makes no difference if it's a rich or poor. They have to physically go there and make the eruv. אבל במקום פלוני, דברי הכל אינני נשיר. But if someone make it just by saying, for example, if he's next to a tree and he says, I'm here, that makes no difference his status. He can be rich or poor alike. וזהו שמור בן קטן אלה. So what does that mean when the Mishnah said that ani, the poor person, can use his physical, moving his feet to be there? Rabbi Meir. This go by the Rabbi Meir that he said that the key point is using a bread. The hayakta kai, what exactly he meant? Eno mekir o sheno baki ba'alacha. So Rashi here have an issue with what does that mean? Eno mekir, eno baki ba'alacha. So I explain in my book, Biurak Lomar Berashi al Hashas, that it's a situation sometimes that the person is not clear what exactly. I put a long writing on this Rashi, so I just give you the abbreviation. A person is not so familiar, and it's basically go by the way that the Tosfot also explain that the person is not familiar. So how you treated it has to be by the second din on the Mishnah that speak about taking the possession, the kinyan shvita in that place. So so the place that he's right now is the place that he's going to stay. So that's the idea. So you allow him to do it in that specific place. But again, there is a Tosfot here, and is a Ritva here, and it's a lot to discuss in this matter. What does that mean? He's not recognized, or he's not so familiar with halachot when making this specific declaration. What we said in the second clause of the Mishnah that we talk about bread is only in leniency. Ma'ik tanela, Rabbi Yehuda. It has to go by the Rabbi Yehuda that said it, the core of Eruv is using his feet. ורב חיסדא אמר מחלוקת במקום פלוני, דרב מאיר סבר אני אין עשיר לא. רב חיסדא said that Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda disagree if that he's not using a bread, he's just saying it. So Rabbi Meir hold that's applied to a poor but not to rich. Rabbi Yehuda סבר אחד נגד אחד עשיר, they're equal. Both of them, it's enough to say that statement. אבל במקום מדברי כל אחד נגד אחד עשיר דקראו ברגל. But if someone said that I'm going to dwell the specific place that I'm going to be at the entrance of Shabbat, so the key point is using his feet. וזו ישמרו, מהי קטן אלא? רב מאיר. So that a poor person uses feet. Who said it? Has to be Rab Meir. That he divided between poor and rich. So Rashi explained, even according to Rabbi Yehuda is not the essence of Eruv. So that's apply because they use this term ani. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, it makes no difference if it's a poor or rich. So even it doesn't mean just by going there. Rav Chizda hold that you need by going there, by moving there, that's you make things happen. And others said that no, you need to use a bread, but the whole idea of making things happen is by moving there, by being there, by physically being there. That makes the difference and make the Eruv acceptable. Which means the whole idea of using the bread, it's just leniency that you allow also to use a bread. Who said it? That according to everyone. So Tosfot said that that's apply only to the second part of the Mishnah, and it's a separate entity. It's not part of our previous discussion. תנא כבדי דרב נחמן, אחד עני ואחד עשיר מערבין בפת ולא יעציר שיר חוץ לתחום. So there's a Tosfot here, again, just give you the abbreviation. He says, the משמע שרוצה לחזור וללון בביתו ויכול לחזור ואין לו אלא ל2,000 עירובו לצד עירו ואפילו אין ביתו הראשון מכניסתו לצד עירו לא יהיה לו בתוך ביתו ל400. So again he has an issue with the distance. And then he goes, אלא שרוצה לחזור לקנות שביתה בתוך התחום, that he need to go inside that domain. And he concluded and he said, כיוון דכל עיקר יציאה הזו לא הייתה לה כדי לערב, וגם לתרמם את הגר יהודה. So basically, what Tosfot said, that he's not really, if he leave the Shabbat limits in full, he will not be able to return to his house on Shabbat. And therefore, in that sense, the poor, it means that how you categorize poor? Categorize poor that if someone's stuck and he cannot return. So even he's rich, the fact that he's not returning, it's under that category of being poor. Rashi said, especially in the second point of Rashi, he says that it's applied specifically in the 4 cubit that he has in extension to 2,000. Right? Yes, on Shabbat limit. ויאמר שבידתי במקומי, he says that I'm going to dwell in that location. לפי שלאמרו מערבים ברגל, למי שבא בדרך וחש חליב רב מאיר. So this is specifically to a poor person. רבי יהודה אומר, אחד עני ואחד עשיר מערבים ברגל, ויצא השיר חוץ לתחום, ויאמר שתהא שבידתי במקומי, וזהו עיקרו של עירוב. ותראו חכמים לבעל הבית, לשלוח עירובו ביד עבדו, ביד בנו, ביד שלוחו, בשביל להקל עליו. So it can be easy for him. אמר רבי יהודה מעשה באנשי בית ממל ובאנשי בית גוריון בארומה שמחכים גורות וצימוקים לעניים בשני בצורת. It was years of poverty. So they used to bring figs or grapes, a dry one, to poor people. That was the basic foundation of food. So ba'in, they used to come on Friday afternoon. עניי כפר שיחין ועניי כפר חנן, people from those villages, that it was within the 4,000 cubit from the aroma, but it's out of the 2,000. ומחשיכים על התחום. So they stay there. So basically they make עירוב תחומים by their feet. למחרת, which means in Shabbat, משקים ומובאים. They go there. So in that sense, they the same as rich people in the עירוב, because they didn't have a food for 2 meals in their homes, the high level of poverty. And another source for that idea, אמר רבא שמתאים דם כדאי כדקטן, מי שיצא ללך לעיר שמערבים מים. If someone goes to a city that they make the עירוב, והחזירו חברו, like his friend said, oh, go, guess what, over there it's very cold or very hot. So he returned to a place that he came. ומותר ללך וכל מיני עיר אסורים לדברי רבי יהודה. He can go to the second city on that Shabbat, but others cannot go there because they are different. It's past the distance that they allow to. ואבינן באו, he asked, according to that Mishnah, מה ישנאיו ומה ישנאינו? What's the difference between that person and others? אמר עמוד האחר, מה הסכם? גון שיש לו 2 בתים, ו2 תחומי שבת ביניהם. Guys own 2 properties in 2 different locations, one in that city, one the other, and there's if you count all together, you wrap it up in 4,000 cubits. אם כיוון דווקא ללא חייב לעני. מכיוון, if he goes to one location, so he's in go to a journey, not in a sense to make it a se'eruv. So he's in out of the category of poor. So as she said, so he can use his expression to make the eruv. Others cannot. So in ashirim, meaning that they're rich in a sense that they cannot use this term to make this eruv. So it means, according to Ravuna, so the Ritva said that it's a very strong proposal against what Rav Chizda said, because it's different than Rav Huna. So he said that only poor person can use this statement, Shvidatim Komploni, and not the rich, Shma Mina. But most of the rabbis hold that it's bedochak, that it's not the way we should understand it. It's just some type of weak source. That's the final halacha. They both can use their feet to make the eruv. Amar le Rav, which is Rav said Rav Chia Barashi, Sayem banamei halacha Rabbi Yehuda. So halacha Rabbi Yehuda, only the person who said that I'm going to be in that specific location, but not all the others. So now we bring a story that he hold originally according to Rav Chizda, and then he changed his mind. Rabba Rav Hanana v'gid le'atei nartivna lepumpedita. That is the distance between these two Babylon city, more than 2,000 amah. Amar te'esh vidati be'tzinta. Tzinta is the name of place. He says, I'm going to be there. In that place, Tzinta, 52. Amar le'abayei madatech. What do you think? That by saying that statement it's enough. Rab Meir v'Rab Yehuda, alcha k'Rab Yehuda. So he said, Amar Rav Chizda, machloket makom ploni. So you hold that you can make halacha according to Rab Yehuda, following Rav Chizda, even that someone who reached to sit in his house like yourself, that he can make it on his way by saying this statement. Rav Nachman v'tan kavatei. Rav Nachman, I'm changing my mind. I'm backing off. I'm changing, and I'm not going to do it in the future to say that I'm going to take an Eruv in the Tzinta. Amar Rami bar Chama Rei, the sage said, Shavat yesh lo 400. If someone who's dwell in an open spot and he making that Shabbat by being there physically, so he has 4 cubit. So in other words, the Chazon Ish explains in Kufteh that he can go 2,000 cubit in outside of the 4 cubits that he's there. But still you have a quandary. Hanuten teruvo yesh lo 400 או לא, which means if someone used bread in extension to 2,000 in each location, is that sufficient or not? The whole idea is to make it easy on a rich person, not to use feasts to make it over. So it's opposite. If you said this doesn't have, that it's make it harder on him because he's losing the 4 cubits that he make it if he using his feet. So the Gemara rejected and said afilu achen nichalei. So he said even that situation, it's still nichalei, it's still this is preferable to him. Why? So that he need not to exert himself and go out and establish an eruv by foot. So therefore it can be said that establishing an eruv with bread constitutes a leniency, even it entails the loss of 4 cubits. So the Rosh explains that even halacha lemaise, this in practical halacha, he has only 4 cubits. So, but it means that Rabbah did not change his mind what he said earlier. So the first discussion is about the exact location. The Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 409. One can only establish residence in a distant location if he is capable of reaching it by nightfall, even if he can only do so by running. If he can reach the location by running, he need not actually run, but may proceed slowly. However, if one cannot reach it even by running, he does not establish it as his resident. So that's the version of Rava's statement. We also talk about, in our discussion, about alachson, the diagonal. We said one can carry an object 4 cubits in a public domain is only liable if he transfer it in the length of a diagonal of a 4 cubit square, which is a 5.6 cubits, but it's permitted to carry it less than that distance. That Tosfot said, and Rosh and Rashba and Ravid. But some said that it's only permitted to carry within the circle of 4 cubit radius. If one walks in any further, he is exempt from any type of punishment or bringing sin offering, because it's even it's prohibited to, it's still exempt. That's the Rambam. If one says my residence in such and such place, without going there or placing an eruv there, it is only valid if he was on a road on Shabbat Eve. It is not effective for one who remains at home. That's the opinion of Nachman. That's the way that the Rashba and Vilna Gaon explain in Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 409. The last subject in Halacha I would like to talk to you, it's about using someone else or using your own eruv by foot. So if one arrived in a certain place where he was on the road or returning to his house in the evening, he may establish residence in that location. It is effective even if he did not explicitly state that his intention, but merely had it in mind. Now, a person may establish an Eruv for himself by means of a messenger, like remember we talked about reach, provided that the messenger is not a deaf mute or a minor, or one who's the issue of shoteh is not in a mental statement, or is reject the concept of an Eruv. Also in Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 4 said that someone who rejected the concept of Eruv, we cannot count on him in the establishing an Eruv.
Kar tu